I bought it from a wrecking yard in Baltimore County, Maryland, back in 1967. It's a total wreck. To make it drivable, yes, I raced it. Uh, Back east, we drag raced, so that's why I bought the car originally, and it was already fairly well gutted, and the engine was all tore apart and out of it. So we drug it down to the gas station I worked at part-time and built a quarter-mile pony car out of it. Did really bad because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And it got to the point where we're working 30, 40 hours a week on the car to run 11.6, 12.2 at the track. And we thought that was a big deal. When I came out to California, I found out that I could put 30, 40 hours a week into the car, then spend an hour and a half or 2 hours driving it on a racetrack like Willow Springs or Ontario Motor Speedway or Riverside. So we proceeded to start, my wife and I, we proceeded to start ripping off all the drag racing junk we put on and how we destroyed the subframe and everything else, and started doing road racing. And again, it's a far better car than I am a driver. So to do things, and that's basically it. I've wrecked the car several times. I don't think you can touch any piece on the car. Place your hands any place on the car and find an original piece. I don't know, a member of the Cobra Owners Club for a number of years. I was one of the founding members of the Ford Drag Club. Got a little decal on the side of the car from Ford Motor Company with my number on it. Best memory? Lost the car at turn 9 on Willow Springs, about 130, and walked away from it. So that was a good memory. I kind of sort of screwed up the engine and the passenger side of the car. They're all good memories. I mean, it just depends. I love driving Willow Spring. I enjoyed the living hell out of Riverside. Most people won't know about Riverside, but it was a nice little track. And after you came out of turn 1, there was a series of chicanes, little back and forth sections going down. And we generally ran the track with Porsches. And you watch the Porsche go down, and they're actually steering their cars to hit the apex of each turn. My car is so big and wide, I come out of turn 1, I line up on the apex of the inside, downshift at the third, kick in the supercharger, and I made a straight shot out of that. I mean, that was it. There was no turning the wheel. You just kind of sort of hung on and you went straight. I thought that was neat. Till one time I got too enthusiastic and I kind of sort of scraped the turn 6, I think it is, and lost the driver's door handle and the mirror. Just kind of sort of scraped them right off the car. And then I went back to the pits and changed my clothes and took a shower because I was no longer wearing a blue racing stripe, it was brown. So I don't know, it just depends. I've raced and wrecked at many a place. So I just enjoy driving the car, and I've always built a car that's far better than I am at driving. Basically, the suspension is stock from Shelby American. Same with the 9-inch rear end and the drum and disc brakes. The only real thing I've done is that when I blew it up out at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in February of 2005, took a while to get over the fact that I was an idiot. And then I started collecting parts, and it took me from basically February of 2005 until about 3 weeks ago to get the car back on the road. The engine I built is I guess you could call it, everything on there, in there, is copied from or improved on a 67 GT40 engine. Has the original set of aluminum heads, pistons, Bill Crowler cams. I talked to him several times, even after he sold the business, and he was finally relented and cut me a special hydraulic cam that duplicates as much as possible the GT40 cam for 67. Anything below 2,000 RPMs on this thing it's lugging. It's a 4,000 or 5,000 RPM breathing engine. So driving in the city kills it. And I have an original 65, 66 Paxton supercharger on it that I scrounged up from Andy Granatelli years ago.
Really?
I've kind of sort of been in the neighborhood of all these guys.
And it's in rental?
Spent a brief time working at Steel Thorkelson's shop until he kicked me out because I was a pain in the ass. And used to go over to Shelby's tire plant in Long Beach and make and scrounge tires out of them. Finally got a job with working with Steel Thorkelson. And he was the guy that did the primary work on the Sunbeam Tiger, which I had one at the time. So we were working at a place called Andrew's Automotive, old restoration shop. And so then ended up moving here for a business venture that failed, and got a job at the Imperial Palace restoring cars there. And every spare moment I had, I was working on this thing. I went down to Dean Moon's place to ask for some questions about adjusting Weber carburetors. While I was there waiting to talk to Dean Moon, he turned around and asked me if I knew anything about air conditioning. So I went up on the roof to fix his air conditioner, and the circuit breaker had blown. So I hit the reset button and threw the switch, went back down, and Mr. Moon's kind of sort of laying over the counter, and he looks at me and says, "You fixed that AC?" I said, "Well, yes, sir." He says, "You want a job?" "Sure." So I started working for him part-time, 3 or 4 days a week, and he had a man work for him by the name of Fred, and he was teaching me everything he knew about how to adjust Weber carburetors, and that's why I was there. Moving tires around stuff was my payment for learning from Fred. Anyway, after several weeks down there, moved a bunch of tires, and back in the corner was this roll bar. And I asked Dean what that was for, and he said, "Oh, that's a prototype bar we had made for Shelby for the 66 Mustangs. If you look at it, you can see that you dive under and get to the back seat, and the back seat will fold up. You have a place." So that's neat. And then Mr. Moon asked me if I wanted it. I said, "Yeah." He said, "How many days did you work here this week?" I said, 2, counting the day. He says, "Take it home, it's your pay." So Fred and I wrestled the damn thing into the car, because I'm going to take it home. I'm going to shove it into the car, and took it home. And my wife and I spent the next 3 days figuring out how in hell to bolt it into the car, and it's been there ever since. So yeah, that's the story of the prototype roll bar. Don't think I'm going to go back on the racetrack with it. Since I was driving it, I have had several major surgeries, and I don't know, I'd have to actually get out on track and see how bad I'm driving before I'd say I would actually never drive again on the track. But Basically, I'm making horsepower the old-fashioned way, and the guys today can outrun me because they have the computer controls and the computer work supercharger, and I'm still there with an O2 meter and trying to read the spark plugs to adjust the carburetor. But it's more fun.
Old school.
Old school. I figure when the time they drop the bomb and all that EMF goes off, you guys will all be parking, and I'll just have to hook a fresh battery up and start it because points won't burn. Out at the racetrack, there's a big SAC Co-Runners Club, SDC8 Co-Runners Club. And I got there early. I asked them where they parked my car. They said they don't care, so I parked it in front of the entrance in. I'm fine, I'm great. I'm starting to set up like that over here. And about 20 minutes later, they come out and say, you got to move your car. I said, why? He says, well, it's all beat up and it's just not really show quality. My feelings got hurt, fine and great. So, where you want? He says, parking around the side of the building. Oh, okay. So I'm inside, half hour, 45 minutes later, I'm inside talking with Gary Patterson, just shooting the BS, and Mr. Shelby walked through the side door. He goes, whose 65 is that out there? I says, mine. He says, what you doing around there? He says, well, I had it parked out front, but they told me it wasn't nice enough to be up front. Carl says, you go pull your car around. They had this really beautiful Cobra 427 from someplace in Illinois or from Detroit, and I'm pulling my car around, and you see these four guys pushing this Cobra out of the way, and Carl says, you put your car there. So I started backing up. He says, no, you get out. The same four guys that pushed that Cobra, I had to push my car back and did it right next to the left-hand side of the doorway going in. I don't remember the year. I blew the car up in 2005, so it had to be 2003, 2004, something like that this happened. But yeah, I just remember that story because the car was raced, and he liked it. So, that's it. Okay.